What's up, Colorado Nation?
No. Don't take my quotes and run with it. It was
Today, we've got several great news stories for you, so we're going to make like Louisiana hot sauce and get really spicy. Our main story today is about Coach Prime dropping the battle axe on the College Football Playoff Committee. Now, recently, we know that the College Football Playoff Committee left an undefeated Florida State University out of the College Football Playoff. We're going to talk about that today. So grab you your favorite hot sauce, whether it's Louisiana or not, throw it on something good, and sit back and get ready because this is the prime time for college football. Now, our first story today, we're going to talk about Coach Prime's warning to the playoff committee. Recently, Coach Prime went on Stephen A. Smith's show and said the following. Now, Coach Norvell, talking about Mike Norvell, coached his butt off, and we can't take anything away from him. Sanders said during his recent interview with Stephen A. Smith the following, but the real question that you have to ask is, would you leave me out of the college playoffs? He said, ain't no way in the world. We're box office. You got to see this unless you're crazy. So let's dive into this debate just a little bit. Hypothetically speaking, let's say Colorado didn't play Oregon and instead had FSU's schedule. And hypothetically, let's say that Colorado went undefeated just like FSU did. What would have happened to Colorado in that scenario? Coach Prime is saying that in that scenario, there is no chance that you're leaving me out. There's no chance that you're leaving the Buffs out. There's no chance that you're leaving Colorado out. Now, the big debate becomes if you follow the college football playoff and you see who they put in ahead of Florida State, the debate would then become, are you putting in an undefeated Florida State with Coach Prime as the head coach, or are you putting in the SEC champion in Alabama? What does the committee do? We understand how much ESPN loves the SEC. You don't have to be an SEC hater to understand that. You guys know it. They understand where their bread is buttered. But ESPN and the College Football Playoff also love ratings. And nobody had ratings quite like Coach Prime when the hype was at its highest this year. Imagine all that hype that would have been out there on the west side of the country than being on the east side of the country. It would have been even higher had it been in the South, in where we consider college football to be the most important. So would the playoff committee have truly left out a Florida State with Coach Prime? Would they have left out a Colorado that was maybe undefeated in favor of an SEC team? I don't think so. That's at least Coach Prime's opinion. I'd love to know your thoughts down below. I'd love for us to be able to chat about this down in the comments. Is there any chance that a 12-0, 13-0 Coach Prime would ever get left out of a 14 playoff? Now, here's what is frustrating about this. We'll never find out because there's a 12-team playoff coming next season. We will know, and we do know that Coach Prime and an undefeated Coach Prime will never get left out because I don't foresee any undefeateds being left out now that we are to a 12-team playoff. So we're just going to have to talk about it. We're just going to have to enjoy the hypothetical. But I want to hear you guys' thoughts down there. I have a couple of points that I'd like to make, but I asked for your comments first so that you couldn't dictate your answers based on my thoughts, my points, my comments. Now, before I get to those, do me a favor. If you've been watching us, if you've been part of the show for a while, I see tens of thousands of you watch every day and you're not subscribed. Do me a favor. My only Christmas wish, a couple of days late, my only New Year's wish is that you would hit that subscribe button. Let us know that you enjoy this content. Let us know that you enjoy what we're doing. Maybe share this with a friend. Tell them to get on the train. We're not slowing down anytime soon. We've been doing 2-a-days for you a couple of times here recently. Make sure that you're part of the channel. Hit the subscribe button and let us know that you appreciate it. Now, ESPN and the college football playoffs would never have left out Colorado, in my opinion, because of how much money they would make them. They were the most viewers by far this year if you include, like we've talked about, the games that were started at 10 p.m. or later, the games that were on networks that didn't even exist in most households. If you look at the first month of the season when Colorado was winning, it was unlike anything we'd ever seen before. Imagine if that train had kept rolling, had they beaten Oregon and beaten USC and then continued to be undefeated. It would have been a fever pitch of noise, and it would have been insane. There's no way that ESPN would have let them be left out. A lot of people have controversy and say, oh, ESPN doesn't control the committee. If you don't think that television dollars control everything that happens in this sport, you're dead wrong. We've talked about that before. But if you look at the top four, if you think about the teams that we're in, you think about Michigan, you think about Washington, you think about Texas, you think about Alabama. I think that Colorado at that point would have been in over all of them. Now, obviously, they'd be in over Washington because they were the Pac-12 team at that point. But suppose that Washington was still there somehow. When you look at this, I think they would have ended up putting Coach Prime in. I think there's a great chance they would have just jumped Alabama up over Texas, but I don't really see a way that they would have left Colorado out of this. I don't see a way that they would have kept Coach Prime from the playoff. Now, does that mean they have to break Texas's heart and basically ignore their head-to-head with Alabama? Possibly. Does that mean they have to break the SEC's heart and rip them out of the playoffs for the first time ever? One of those two things would have had to happen. One of those two things would have been the way that it would have happened, but I kind of agree with Coach Prime. I can't imagine a scenario where they would have left out an undefeated Coach Prime team from the playoffs. Coach Prime would have burned the world down if they even thought about him leaving him and his Colorado program out of the playoffs. Now, ESPN, I think, as we all know, is pretty corrupt, and they're pretty money hungry. And you see this based on a lot of things that they do, from the talking heads that they have on to the way that they decide that undefeated teams somehow don't deserve to make the playoffs. And they come up with narratives that they want to push. And if you go back and listen to some of the things that ESPN was saying about FSU's quarterback that got hurt, they were calling for Florida State to be out of the playoffs before the quarterback even went down. We talked about the quarterback when Travis Hunter came out with his video and was sending well wishes to Jordan Travis. But I think this was something that was long in the works before. And I think ESPN's narrative, their power hungriness, their money hungry greed is what ended up leaving Florida State out. I think that they wanted the best possible games that they could get and the best possible revenue that they could make. And I do think that Colorado makes them a crap ton of money. And I think that's honestly why Colorado would have gotten in. Good or bad, I think ESPN's greed and corruption would have helped Coach Prime in this situation. ESPN also has a monopoly over the college football playoffs, and that probably needs to end at some point. Fox, CBS, others probably need to get involved more so because ESPN's monopoly over the playoffs allows things like this to go on. It allows situations like this to happen. Now, all of this said, we have not really given our take on the college football playoff yet on this channel, but Coach Prime brought it up. We wanted to share our take and tell you we agree. We think Coach Prime would not be left out of a playoff like this. But we also think that Coach Prime saying this pokes a lot of holes in a lot of issues that ESPN has. It pokes a lot of doubt into the way that they control things. And it kind of makes you wonder if it's not all something that needs to change somewhat soon. I'd love to talk about it down in the comments. Do you think Coach Prime is right? Do you think they'd put an SEC team in over them? Do you think they'd put Texas in over them? What do you think about ESPN? What do you think about this media company controlling the entire monopoly of the college football playoffs? Let's talk about that down in the comments. Listen, something different today. Want to continue the content for you. Want to keep things going. So hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you guys for always joining us on the prime time for college football.